We are live and recording. So good afternoon, everybody. Just gone 12 o'clock here in the UK. I'm Alex Chisnell, Festival of Enterprise, hosting today. I'm joined by Merlie Calvert, who's in North London at the moment.
I am.
Yeah. And how is it looking? Because I'm in Poole in Dorset and it is a beautiful day in the neighbourhood.
Oh gosh, I'm so jealous. It's
really
pretty overcast here.
I thought London would be hotter. Wow. Okay. Oh yeah, it's glorious. So I'm playing golf later, so I'm like.
Right, that's it. I'm stopping the recording now, right?
It's my new Fridays. This is, this phrase, the new normal. I've got a new normal now, and it involves golf from about 4 o'clock onwards on a Friday. So long may it continue. Right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. So Merlie is the CEO and founder of Farillio, award-winning three-year-old tech startup.
I know. How did that happen?
In the business and legal services sector. When were you 3 then? Was that a couple of months back?
Officially June, beginning of June.
Okay.
So the company was incorporated a few months before that, but we didn't really get started until June. I'm
sure I saw some posts on social about the 3 years. That's what surprised me. I was like, 3 years, really?
It's gone so fast.
I bet. But yeah, they're in the business and legal services sector. And Merlie's passionate about Farillio's mission to ensure that no small business owner struggles because they can't access the information, the materials, or the expert help they need. And this is something we've covered a couple of times, but not massively over the last couple of months, and talking about different options for startups and scale-ups that can't afford to take on, a full-time legal professional, but need information. And I don't know what you think. Do you think these days there's almost too much information out there and there's no actual online, but there's no actual structure for people to actually kind of frame what they need to actually know?
Exactly that. I mean, it's the one reason why I built Farillio in the first place. Nothing's joined up. Google's not a friend. There's so much white noise. A lot of it's very superficial too. So there's lots of people who will tell you what to do, but not how to do it. So you're left kind of thinking, okay, I think I just about understand that, but I don't know what you want me to do. So Farillio is, if I like to call us a sort of huge interactive digital cookbook of small business recipes. So it's a little bit like you wake up in the morning and you think, I need help. And that might be, I need someone else to help me to do stuff. That might be an employee. It might be something you're going to outsource as a project to a freelancer. It might be tax advice. It might be fundraising advice. Many of us want to know how to get more money into the business. And what you actually need is a recipe. You need a set of ingredients that joins everything up, bit of tax, bit of bookkeeping, bit of insurance, maybe some sales and marketing stuff. Law is kind of a golden thread that weaves through it all. And then you need a trusted methodology so that you can work your way through it and you understand where every simple component works together. And then you just want to get the outcome, right? And none of that exists in reality in isolation. So I like to say it's a little bit like waking up and thinking, I'm going to have curry for supper, but I want a recipe to make it. That's how we think as business owners, right?
Yeah. And interested to know, actually, how has subject matter changed over the last, I think it's like 100 days or something, isn't it, that we've been in this new state, lockdown, whatever we're going to call it. But yeah, how is like the subject matter that people have been asking you about or searching for? How's that changed? That must have changed quite dramatically. Am I right?
Yeah, it has. I think it's a really good question. I mean, we started 2020 kind of fixated on growth, a little bit anxious about Brexit, and importing and exporting sort of impact particularly.
Yeah.
And we had so many conversations with organizations, including some who are really leading the country, who were saying, oh, small businesses just aren't ambitious enough. They're not thinking about growth or scale or alternatives. We need to create more jobs. Lots and lots of the products that we work with, we're talking about, we exist to make small businesses more confident so that they can go out there and grow and create more jobs. And then rapidly, within about 2.5 months into this year, the whole focus became really about 3 core things: people, protection, so jobs, survival financially, and then it became about premises. So people, cash flow, premises, and that's all anyone wanted to talk about. So their relationship with their landlords, how they get money and keep going. And so really for about probably the first 3 months of lockdown, that's been the sole conversation in the main. And now what we're seeing is people starting to get a little bit back to growth and sales. But it's, talking about ambition right now seems inappropriate.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you mentioned that, because like the B word, wasn't it, Brexit, and it's completely forgotten about. I was looking yesterday because I thought we must be coming up to like 150 of these live webinars now. We're meant to have been doing 2 live events, as you know, at Olympia and in the NEC, but instead we kind of find ourselves here. And when I looked, the first one we did was, funnily enough, on import and export, and then I think the third one was as well, and then everything that we did was around funding, and the numbers were off the charts. People attending, wanting to know, all these different schemes. And now it's definitely, we've seen a sea change. People wanting to know, how to improve their sales, marketing strategies, and again, this whole conversation around HR and how people work and where they work. People who had, again, like you said, a couple of CEOs of big companies like, Al Barrett from Grenade, biggest sports nutrition in Europe, saying we're about to move into these massive bespoke offices. But if I actually now embrace the fact that I could employ anyone from anywhere in the world to work, it actually opens up a whole talent pool to me that I didn't know existed before. So many different issues around it. They didn't even, look into things like that before. All of a sudden, it's like, wow. But how do I get out of this new building that we're meant to be moving into? So, really interesting change, eh?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
And would you say that you've become like a lot busier? Like traffic wise, volume wise? I'm assuming so from the conversation so far with you.
Yeah, we have. I think a lot of that has been driven by the video work and the fact that we have, very luckily, an enormous ecosystem of experts that we've just kind of found a way to still get the camera in front of them, actually faster than ever in normal times, and just to say, right, this has happened, comment on it now. What do we do? Tell us, show us online how you make this stuff, how you do it. What are all the hacks? And then, of course, you can broadcast that out. And so a lot of people were making landlord payment plans with the expert curation. They were negotiating better trading terms, or at least compromised trading terms. I can't deliver in this way on that date. And all of that advice was bound up. Obviously, the whole furlough arrangements, how you do that safely, how you avoid laying people off, or worse, making them redundancy. So all of that with our expert community, plus actually we found we were answering so much more on the business side too. Is it appropriate to market right now? Is it going to
massive
feel
one.
unsavory? Huge. Sales pivots. Is it the right thing for me to do to fundamentally change my business? And actually talking to some of our experts, the advice was, no, just change the way you're doing what you do. So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Don't feel this immense pressure because other people are doing it to fundamentally change your business model. Just try doing a few things a bit differently. And it's been amazing watching that play out as well. But I think, yes, we went into overdrive. We're a content monster anyway.
Yeah.
But you've got to keep that business usual level of content maintained at the same time as, you know, almost create an entirely different platform of content just to deal with COVID-19.
Yeah, and we were saying off air before, I was saying, you know, it's technology has been a great leveler during this time, and what you alluded to, you know, with regards to content creation, whereas before you might, you know, try and work out how to get a camera crew, which could only be, you know, one person or two people or three people, etc., around to schedule some content in, and the costs. Whereas compared to now, it's literally like, let's jump on a Zoom, or let's jump on like this Crowdcast, and just hit the record button, and let's take a subscription, which is $14.99 a month or whatever it is with Zoom, you know, and you're like, away we go.
It's been incredible, right? Because the number of people who before this period would never have held video supported meetings or made recordings, you know, recorded themselves and posted it out, it just wouldn't have happened. I think people have found new flexibility and new courage out of quite challenging times. And we ended up, and this still makes me giggle, but we ended up with gaming tech, because we watched how the gamers were doing stuff. Thought, actually, they do it better than a lot of other services that were all sort of being commercially streamed into. So we went and learned from a load of gamers how to change our video presenting, how to do some of the fun stuff that they do. Our videographer's been in weird and wonderful Facebook groups, learning all sorts of hacks to be able to do various things. But it's been great. We've learned so much, which we'd never have learned before. And
the barriers so low to entry, aren't they?
Yes.
You know,
yes.
And again,
I think, you know, it's so much more permissive. I mean, I love the comment that you made about tech being a great leveler. I feel like I have a more personal relationship with our customers, our partners, everybody, because you can see what's going on in the background, and some of it you just can't control.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. And it's what you remember. It makes everything a lot more personal, I think, and that drives a greater sense of connection that you wouldn't necessarily have.
Great point, because I think before it was so formal, still in this day and age, of like, you know, let's schedule an appointment, and that'll be, how's your diary looking like next month? And these are the options. You go back and forth, and now it's literally, here's a Zoom link, boom, jump on in an hour or whatever. And it's like you say, there's all sorts of stuff, you know, going on in the background. Cats frequently appearing in my videos, and sounds like yours too. Other animals as well, possibly, and other people entering the room.
Small children, frequently.
Children, you can even hear them. Like, you can only see one person, but you can hear other stuff going on in other rooms. But it's made it more conversational and more relaxed. And funny, it's like a mutual friend of ours, Magnus Grimeland from Antler Global Startup Generator. You know, he said to me, if the one thing that comes out of this lockdown, that I don't have to jump on a plane, fly to another continent for a 45-minute meeting and then back again, then that will be a godsend. And I was like, my God, do you do that? And he's like, yeah, literally. It will be, you know, from Singapore to LA for one 45-minute meeting. And you're like, Jesus.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Isn't it? Just, you know, let alone going into the green, you know, environment and carbon footprints and all that kind of stuff. But it's funny, isn't it? Because whereas before you'd still have meetings on the phone with somebody, they're very different to literally just having a video, aren't they? And I think people have just realized that you can actually do business like this. Because I ended up going to London 3 days a week, you know, 2 hours on the train each way. And I was like longer on the train on a day than I was actually in meetings. And you're just like, I don't really need to be doing that in the great scheme of things.
I think it'll be really interesting to see what the productivity statistics are coming out of this period. And you've kind of got to decouple that from the sort of survival mode that we've all had to deal with. Very few of us will emerge from this period unscathed. But productivity wise, we're not commuting. We're managing our time better. We're probably taking a few more breaks during the day. And if we're not, we should be taking the opportunity to do that. I think it's really interesting. You're losing time sort of traveling between meetings. I don't know. I think it'll be really fascinating to see actually what the statistics show.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I haven't factored that in, but you're right. That survival mode and versus productivity, that is a good one to take into account. But I have spoken to a number of CEOs, founders on this who've run big companies with hundreds of staff, and they say they've been surprised at the productivity level, like they've got more done with less people. And they're saying that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to go out and get rid of all of those people, but it kind of plants a seed, doesn't it, as to what you can actually get by on if people are given or empowered, maybe is the right word, to actually just crack on with things on their own.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a false period. So anyone in the mindset of, I can suddenly lay off a load of people should probably think about that very carefully. I'm sure they will. But I think what it has changed is trust between employers and employees. I know there are lots of big corporations. We work with law firms, tax firms, etc., across the country. And what they're all playing back to us is that they would never have been comfortable with their entire workforce working remotely, out of sight, not being supervised in the same way. And yet what they've seen is increased productivity, a few tech glitches, clearly, but actually customers coming back and saying, this is really working for us too. We can get hold of you more immediately. We're getting great service. It feels personal. And actually, we haven't had to slow anything down. So I think that trust that you don't have to have someone on a seat in front of you to be confident that they're actually doing their job well. You can actually judge it by the outputs and the feedback. It's quite a step change, not so much for the tech community, I think, because we're used to remote workers. But I think for the wider working nation, it's definitely brought a greater degree of trust, enforced, but it's had a positive impact.
And interested to know then, when you're talking about like the content creation as well, have you had to, and maybe this goes out broadly with more things, but have you had to adjust your strategy then? And you're obviously, 3 years in, you're agile enough to do that. But how much did you kind of stick to the roadmap that you had planned out for the next 3-6 months? Because now we've hit halfway through the year, haven't we? We're literally 6 months of the year, but we've still got 6 months of the year to go, and a lot can be achieved. But how much have you changed, adapted, stuck to the plan?
I think the mission is absolutely still the same, but there have been projects that we've delayed for sure because they haven't felt as immediately important as our COVID response. We kicked off a campaign in March called Leave No SME Behind, and that was supported in part by a 3-hour pledge campaign where we got as many people within the expert community, and actually far wider than our normal expert community, to pledge 3 hours of their time for free to support a small business. And we literally match-made people over Twitter and our social channels, just saying, these are the pledges on offer. If you need help with tax, sales, marketing, people, law, whatever it might be, just claim using the hashtag. And we match-made loads and loads of people to phenomenal experts who came forward. We even had a whole law firm who came forward that we didn't have a relationship with before.
Really? So that's interesting.
Who said, we'll get on board. How many pledges do you need? And I think they gave us an initial amount and then they topped it up. So we've, in a very positive way, been distracted from what we would have been doing during this period. But I actually think it's put us in a stronger position. We've made new partnerships, met new expert partners. I think we know our core customer base more because they've been much more vocal. So our live chat channel blew up. Our social channels and all the DMs blew up. And that's been a challenge for a very small team to stay on top of and make people know that we're listening, we're processing, we're doing as much as we can, we're videoing answers where we can't give it one-to-one. But it felt like the right thing to do. And I think in many ways, although like most other businesses, you take a hit because of COVID, and financially, definitely we've seen deals delayed, and a couple of months of delayed revenue has an impact. But ultimately, if you're super busy and you know that you're doing something that is making a real impact, making a real difference, and protecting the wider community, it's stuff that you just have to say, yes, I know we've delayed a few things and money's a bit tighter than it would have been, but this is the right call to make. And as a wider team, I think every single member of our team endorsed it. So when we said, this is what we're going to delay, and this is the impact, and this is what we're going to be doing instead, every single team member, and we have people working remotely across the UK, said, I'm in. And what more can I do?
Yeah, and what's your feeling? Because I've, you know, not dissimilar story to yourself, you know, with big 8-figure brands, 9-figure brands that I was, you know, going to be working with, and like shelved that, like it's like a big blue chip company, you know, literally just clear the decks, you know, a factories in China making stuff, and it's like literally they're able to look at the bottom line and go, okay, if factory can't make anything, we can't sell anything. Which means, you know, there's no cash flow. But I've now started seeing people coming back, you know, being unfurloughed, marketing departments, specifically, you know, the people that I always speak to, being unfurloughed and saying, you know, budgets are being realigned, and they're looking at, okay, so when are we going to do the new website, the podcast, the new digital marketing campaign, you know, all that kind of stuff. You know, what's your feeling? Because I've just started talking about this yesterday with a few people, with regards to literally summer holidays are here for everybody. You know, a week around the corner, or if you're in a private school, it's happened today. But do you get the feeling, just from people you've been speaking to, and I know you've been speaking to government and all sorts of different people, that it's business as usual, or is it the usual, like, we can't make a decision now in the summer because so many of our team are off on holidays, so we'll get back to you in September? What's your kind of gut feeling? Because you speak to a lot of people in a lot of different industries.
I don't think anyone is slowing down. So I think taking holiday actually is important, because I think the net impact of this changed, very intense way of working is that as individuals, we risk burnout. Yeah. And I think that can happen across every layer of the business. It's not just management. Although I do worry about a lot of managers, mid-managers as well as senior managers, because they're the ones who have still been in situ, not been furloughed. They're carrying a lot of burden. They're probably taking on extra duties because they don't have the staff on site now to do these things. So I think it is really important that we allow people to slow down and take a bit of a breather, even if it's not sitting on the beach in Spain like we might have hoped. But people are still coming back, keeping going. I think we can't afford not to. I mean, what I'm talking to a lot of our customers about particularly is celebrating coming back. You know, make a big fuss, go out there, get the bunting out, make sure people know you're back, because a lot of the time we kind of creep back in and we forget to tell people. Make a big fuss, because people love to celebrate. This is a positive thing. Become front of mind again. And, you know, do something actually that suggests you're in a really strong position. I'll share with you a short anecdote. My father-in-law used to run a construction business in Wales. Wonderful man, very, very resilient and resourceful. And he always said that in a downturn, he would go out and buy something new. Like he'd go out and buy a brand new JCB, or he would repaint the front of the office, because it gave everyone else the impression that he was doing well. He was back. He was doing well. He was keeping going. So revamping your website, going and producing some new marketing collateral. You don't have to spend a lot. You don't have to go out and buy a JCB. But the point
I need a new car.
I'd love to drive a JCB.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? But go out there with a bang.
Yeah,
And be
that's great. I love
assertive,
it.
because I think the impact that creates for everyone else is a sense of confidence, celebration. Let's get back to normal alongside them. And look, you've got the Bank of England saying, actually, we are looking at V-shaped recovery. So let's talk ourselves into it as well, and get back in the saddle.
Yeah, I like that. I like that as a fellow Welshman by the sound of it as well. So I like that even more. That's great. I'm always big on big plays like that. I think confidence, because if you're thinking confidently, it's a mindset thing, isn't it? You're more likely to act confidently. Whereas, like you say, if you tiptoe back in and go, we're open for business. What kind of, you just like that. Nobody pays you any attention to that.
Yeah, and look, it doesn't have to be perfect. I was speaking to a hairdressing business the other day who I love, and they're very dynamic, very creative. But they were really anxious because they said, well, what if we make this big fuss, but then it's a bit scrappy on the day and we don't get it perfect and we make a mistake? And I said to them, well, how will you know if you don't get back in? That's not an excuse not to do it. But also just accept that it won't be perfect day one, and it will feel very weird. But once you get back in and we get into a rhythm of these things, every day gets easier. But get back in.
Yeah, exactly. And I do like that. I agree with you when you say I think that everybody should take a break, because you hear of certain employers who, are kind of putting the pressure on the staff going, take your leave during this period so that you can work through July, August, September, etc. Get all hands on deck. Whereas I agree with you. I think even if it's like you say, we don't end up with a foreign holiday we were hoping for various reasons. The fact that you take a break, because it has been, without even thinking about it, it has been until you said that, I hadn't even kind of thought about it like that. But it has been an intense type of working, hasn't it? Because and everyone I say this to is the same. I was like, I thought I was busy before this, and effective, not just busy for the sake of being busy. I was doing loads of stuff, and I've never been busier now. Like that time that everyone says, oh, we've all got more time now. And I'm not even my little commute, which is, half an hour from Poole into Bournemouth. I've filled that with stuff, and I'm doing stuff in the evening still, my working day kind of doesn't finish. But
I think that's the real danger of working from home too. You don't have the normal delineations of start and finish. And I don't know about you, but I miss the commute home. I used to walk home. It's a 50-minute walk home, and I used to put my headphones on, listen to a podcast or my audiobook, and march home. And that for me was a real sense of, I'm leaving the office behind. I'm going to just free my mind and let it go wander, go somewhere different. And then by the time I get home, I'm ready to be home. And even if I have to work later in the evening, as invariably
you still had that delineation, haven't you? That break.
Space to breathe.
You're so right.
Really essential.
Yeah. And I used to do, I'd get on the bus from town, because I was driving the car and then walking. And I was like, actually, if there's public transport, why not bloody use it? So I was, but I would use that time on the bus to maybe answer the last couple of emails. And then I would listen to a podcast, or I would just play some music, depending on what mood I was kind of in. And then I still had a 10-minute walk the other side. And that 10-minute walk was completely like music or podcast. And that was the break. And even if, like you say, I flipped open a laptop later in that evening, I wouldn't be answering emails, but I'd maybe be doing, some kind of, working on myself, like, I following a course maybe, or reading a book. But there would be that break, whereas it just merges into one, doesn't it?
And I think, look, people make the magic happen. No business exists without great people, whether you're a sole trader, you're freelancing, or you're an employee within a big organization. It doesn't really matter. If you aren't looking after your own mind space and conserving your sort of golden potential, then you can't perform at your best. And you are the best and the biggest asset any business can have. So all of its value starts with you. If you're a founder, if you're a team leader, then you are creating and curating that value within your team, if you haven't got space to breathe and just to leave it all behind and let your mind go wander and actually look after your own physical well-being too, you're not going to achieve in the same way. And I think that's one of the things that worries me about this period, the sort of the mental health impact of all of this. You know, there's a lot of fear and anguish about contracting the virus. There's fear and real anxiety about job security, which immediately puts people into sort of defensive mode. And I think there's fear and anxiety generally about what the world looks like round the corner. Now, that's a heck of a lot of stress to carry with us on top of just performing the normal day job in a very different environment. So it is something that we really need to give some serious thought to, that sort of breathing space and being kind to ourselves.
Yeah.
The reason why when you get on a plane, they tell you to put on your own oxygen mask before you put on someone else's. And that analogy is really powerful here. Look after yourself, because if you don't, you can't perform your best, but you also can't look after anybody else.
And I'm sure you kind of alluded to furloughing, and then there's been whole rafts of redundancies, and talking about planes reminded me, because my background was with Virgin Atlantic, and that industry's been hit massively, and I've been co-hosting a podcast with a friend of mine, which I love doing. It's only like 6 weeks in now, but it's really struck a nerve. I started this podcast and we've been doing lives, and it's been getting like 5,000 people watching it. And we've literally just started it because it's struck a nerve with people. It is, really emotional and raw, but I've been amazed at the number of people. I just assumed everybody would want to go and get another job, but it's almost like 2 to 1 people, double the amount of people want to get a job, but 50% of people want to start a business.
Yeah.
And I guess they've just had the time, because they've all been on furlough for the last, 100 days or more, to actually think about, is this what I've always wanted to do with my life? Maybe I've fallen into it. Maybe I've fallen out of love with it, and this kind of goes across, any range of industries, I guess. But do you, again, think that there will be, and I know you help, whether you're a freelancer, whether you're a startup, whether you're an SME, do you think this period, when we look back on it in another 10 years, you can almost see a spike in the number of new businesses that are being started by people, because a job isn't for life anymore, and we've known that for a while, clearly.
Yes, I do. I think it's going to be a false spike in a way, because I think a lot of people who would like to go into employment will be forced into becoming self-employed because there just won't be the opportunities to go back to. And I think that's something that troubles me, because out of this period, I think incredible businesses and incredible individuals will definitely emerge, and people who've never thought of themselves as being anything but an employee will realize that they have a degree of potential that they just underestimated. And I think they will go on and do great things. And I hope they do form the businesses of tomorrow. If you think about the statistics, last year, the almost 6 million small businesses within the UK economy contributed 2.2 trillion to our national wealth. That's a phenomenal amount. We might be small, but collectively we're very mighty. But we're not going to see those kind of growth figures or those kind of contributions this year. So I think, yes, we will see growth, and I think that's a good thing, but it's going to be a much slower growth. I think there'll be much more micro businesses as opposed to those who are larger and can create jobs. And jobs creation has to be a much stronger agenda item, I think, for the government. We've got to shore up small businesses. And I think we've got to be alive to the fact that if there are a lot of people starting, and there are a lot of people starting for whom it may not have been the dream, but it's an enforced choice, that we've absolutely got to support them properly to be a success. And I think at the moment, it's not about chucking money or incentives at these individuals and these businesses. It's actually about providing them with the right toolkit, and an essential toolkit that's practical as opposed to opinions, theory, but not very pragmatic.
I was just thinking this would probably be a good. So we've started separate conversation, but I'll throw it in as we're coming to the end. But so I've been looking to make partnerships. Just started this week actually, because so many people within this group that we started are looking at starting a business, and I've been kind of bowled over with how many. And obviously, there's quite a few reasons. A number of them have had kind of like side hustles whilst they've been flying, like a lot of people working in the services do, is, firemen, policemen have other things when they get, work 4 days on, work 4 days off. But that could be a really good live that we do. Like I say, we're getting 5,000 people a week at the moment doing that, but actually doing one based around what you actually need, what support you could do with, just more and more thinking about what you offer. It hadn't occurred to me before we jumped on here, but that could be quite a good one if you or someone within your company could help.
I think it's vital, Alex. One person you should absolutely speak to if you haven't already is Alex Teal, who's the chairman of the National Enterprise Network, who's this immense dynamo of a character, but hugely passionate actually about saying small businesses need the essentials, and we've got to stop talking about this, and we've got to stop thinking that giving them money is the solution. We've actually got to build it, and we've got to build it now. And he has a very clear view of what we need because he's boots on the ground and hearing it and seeing it and experiencing it every day. So he has a fascinating viewpoint. But, ultimately we do need to know what that toolkit is. And a lot of people will tell you that they are part of it or they think they've got it. But in reality, it's an upsell opportunity as opposed to a genuine foundational need. And I think that's what we need, and someone to take leadership on that. Do you know what it reminds me of? Is the bounty pack that pregnant women get given when they first see their midwife to kind of check in and effectively work out that the swelling stomach is not too much junk food, but it's a baby. And they give you this wonderful pack that's kind of signed off and endorsed by medical health professionals, and it's full of all these samples that medical health professionals think you should know about and you should perhaps be using. And we kind of need that, I think, for the small business community, one for startups and one for more established businesses, and possibly one in the middle for freelancers who may have slightly different needs. But that's what we need. We don't need white noise. We actually just need something that we know we can trust and we can start using. And that, I think, would stabilize a lot of these, particularly the brand new businesses starting up now.
No, really good
Alex,
point.
if you're not passionate about the dream, you and I jumped 2 feet in because we couldn't imagine not doing anything else. Right. So for us, it was the entrepreneur, massive drive. But if you're in a position where you didn't want to be made redundant or laid off, or to end up with the job that you were ultimately offered because everything got changed, and you're having to start out and go out there, learn an entirely new skill set, which you do as the founder of any business. It's not your natural skill set. You feel like you're useless because you don't know all the stuff that everyone else knows: insurance, tax, bits of law, financial planning, all of this stuff that frankly you never want to think about. You need proper support, because if it's not your passion and it's not your dream and you're doing it anyway and your family depends on it, perhaps you've got to have as much support as you can possibly get to make it work. And from the government's point of view, they need to care about this, because if you don't support them, they'll end up on universal credit, and that's a tragedy.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. And maybe a good place to kind of finish up.
Get off my soapbox.
No, it's all massively relevant though as well. And I've been having these conversations as well. So and just starting to have these conversations. We're just at the tip of the iceberg, aren't we? That's the thing. I think once it gets to the autumn, it's going to be a whole different ball game again. Once people get back into the offices. Yes, maybe a good start, finishing point would be, because I know I'm going to get all asked these questions next week as well, just within this group, and we've seen the audience here. We started from a standing start with 0 online audience to now it's over 15,000. And it's quite a young, instead of big established businesses, it is very much, the startups, the micro businesses, the freelancers, SMEs. What should they be looking at from your point of view, and where your business comes from? What are kind of some of the first things, so people don't know where to start, where to look, and they look online as to what they need, legal services, business services, and your head explodes, doesn't it? But could you give maybe a couple of takeaways that be a good point? And I know we're talking general because every business is very different, but things like IP, I get asked all the time, and at what stage should I be looking at this? And it's a common question. And before you look at anything, you need to sign an NDA. All these kinds of things that people probably seen on TV shows. What's actually relevant, do you think, now?
Well, obviously get Farillio, because we'll answer all those questions for you.
There you go.
Don't overcomplicate things. I see so many people at the very early stage, and it's born out of passion, but also anxiety, barrel headfirst into a load of things. Come back to the business plan. Create yourself a very simple but very clear business plan, and you should be doing this and reviewing this on a regular basis. So it doesn't matter if you've been going 2 years, 2 days, 2 months, 2 hours. Start there and keep coming back to it, because if you've done it right, everything you need to do will be within that business plan. And there's a very easy way to put a business plan together. And if anyone's looking for suggestions, we've got a great guide on Farillio that backs you up before you even get to a business model canvas, which is one of my favorite tools. There are a couple of exercises you can do beforehand. You don't need to be an expert in anything to do those experts. It's actually quite liberating. And all you're doing essentially is finishing a couple of sentences that get you thinking about how everything's going to work. What are you envisaging? Are you envisaging enough of the landscape to know whether it's something you want to make a business plan out of? And then you keep coming back and visiting that over time. So that's really important. I also talk a lot about you as an individual, and I mentioned that sort of need to conserve your golden potential. There's a great guide, again, that I produced out of a lot of the teaching that I do with the entrepreneur hubs, which is about you and why you are the biggest and most valuable asset your business will ever have, and how you hold on to that and protect it. And there's a nice exercise in that I call the pass the baton plan, which enables you to keep checking in with yourself and identifying what you love, what you hate. There'll always be a fair amount in that. What the business needs you to do, regardless of how you feel about it. And that will change over time. And then what somebody else could do better as soon as you've got the ability to bring that other person on, whether that's an advisor, a fellow freelancer. Freelancers are amazing to anybody starting a business or, struggling a little bit with it right now. The freelance community is the best resource you can ever have. Seriously experienced, readily available, not looking to make anything out of you, just to get a fair wage for their time and expertise. They'll fall away when you've finished your projects or you've completed your need for that particular set of expertise, because the people you start with often aren't the people that you continue with, so you don't want to be employing them. So that's a really powerful thing. But you keep coming back to this pass the baton plan too, and it forms your recruitment plan, your recruitment strategy. But it also is that great mental health leveler as well, because when you start out, it's all on you. You're doing everything you hate, everything the business needs you to do, and generally very little of the stuff that you actually started the business to do in the first place. So those two things, I would say, do them. You can do them at any stage of your business, but keep checking in with them, because they're the things that make everything else easy. And they enable you to assess, what is my IP? You are your IP, actually, particularly when you start. You are the most valuable piece of IP, and we protect everything that you create, trademarks, copyright, design rights, patents, whatever it is that you do, but we don't protect the most valuable asset of all, which is you. So you have to do that. But your business plan will enable you to identify what is formally protectable rather than you. It will identify when and where you might need an NDA. It will really force you to look at who your customers are, what they really like, whether their behavioral patterns are something that you can fit into. Can you be a habit in their buying pattern? And then from there, everything else follows. And I think for a lot of us, we Snapchat, I need accountancy software. I need an employment contract because I need to be ready. I might need to register with HMRC, although I'm not quite sure what for right now. And we go for those things because it feels like we're ticking a box.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's not joined up and it's all over the place. And we waste an immense amount of time. There was a horrifying survey done by smallbusiness.co.uk, and I think supported by Lawbite a few years ago. And they concluded that as a community of startups and small businesses, we were spending a whopping 570 million hours a year finding solutions or looking for solutions and not feeling terribly satisfied with where we ended up. And a rough cost of £60 billion. I mean, that's horrific, right? So if you start with the plan, keep coming back to it, have your pass the baton plan, because that's the human element of it too. You continue the journey with good guidance, you'll actually be far stronger mentally as well as commercially to face the challenges ahead. But I would say, give yourself the space to breathe, do the plan, do the pass the baton plan, and then carry on from there.
That's awesome. I've just posted up while I was thinking of it, your website, which I think I've got right, Farillio, which is
yes, Farillio. That's our rally cry.
Love it. And I know, because I've just looked as well, literally from as little as £18 a month. Am I right that you can gain access to whole wealth of?
There's a free trial period. You may also found that we're bound up in insurance policies that you have, trade association memberships, etc. So if you're not sure whether you've got it already, reach out to us on the live chat function on Farillio and we can give you a bit of guidance, tell you where the deals are.
Awesome. And neither of us were disturbed by cats, children?
No, amazing.
No, now seems a good time to sign off then. We're coming up to the hour mark. Told you I was going to run over, didn't I? Massively. Typical. I could talk to you for ages. It's been too long. You just schedule another one in. See what the second half of maybe get you back on second half of the year, see how things have changed, because I'm sure people's needs have changed by then as well. So cool.
Yeah, hopefully in a very positive way.
Indeed, maybe even in a live environment with other humans as well. Who knows?
God, wouldn't that be lovely? Can we have some beer with that?
Exactly. Merlie, thank you so much indeed. Really appreciate it. I always get asked when the replay is going to be available because, so many more people watch it in their own time, of course. So this will be literally available in 10 seconds. As soon as I press end broadcast, it will recalibrate, make it available. Likewise on our Facebook, Twitter and YouTube channels. As soon as it's stopped, it will be available again for the replay. So if you found any value from this and you want somebody else to listen to what we've talked about today, simply send them the link that you use to access this, and more people will see and hear the message. So thank you once again. Happy Friday. Enjoy your weekend, whatever you're up to. Hope the weather improves over there, by the way. See you later. Take care. Bye-bye.